Howdy, partner. Welcome to Real Film Snobs. I'm Brian Michael.
Hi, y'all. This is Angela Yeager, and we have a special episode for you this week. It is Westerns time, and Brian and I just assembled some Westerns, little lesser-known ones, not the really famous one, because we've already reviewed those, because we've been doing this so darn long. And we assembled some lesser-known Westerns from various critics lists we have, things we wanted to see, some really interesting directors we like, so here we go. Giddy up. So our first movie is Destry Rides Again from 1939, directed by George Marshall, and this is about lawman Destry, played by Jimmy Stewart, who is brought in to bring order to the small town of Bottleneck. I just love the name of the town, by the way, Bottleneck, which is run by a criminal mastermind and a barmaid named Frenchie, played by Marlene Dietrich. And so the name Frenchie has nothing to do with the fact that the barmaid has a thick German accent.
Marlene Dietrich and Jimmy Stewart. As soon as I saw that, I went, yeah, we have to see this Western.
Yeah.
This is a must.
And this is
we
one,
have to see
this film is very influential. If there are any people out there who are fans of the movie Blazing Saddles, this movie borrows, that movie borrows a lot from this one. And in fact, I believe I read that Madeline Kahn based her character in Blazing Saddles on Marlene Dietrich in this movie.
Yeah.
And this is fantastic. I loved this movie.
I knew that she based it on Marlene Dietrich, but I didn't know it was from this movie is what it is.
So
you get Jimmy Stewart comes into town. Everyone, because his father was a tough guy, and so everyone expects, he's going to come in there. He doesn't carry a gun. He's trying to do things in a nonviolence way. So of course everyone makes fun of him, but he's Jimmy Stewart, and he stays the course, does
good
what he
and
has
steady,
to do.
Jimmy Stewart
Has really good chemistry with her, because you saw this before I did when we put the list together, and I said, does it work? Because this might blow up in our face, and you were like, actually,
it does.
They work really well
together. I would never thought.
Ever.
This is one of those weird studio things where I'm sure it was the studio said, oh, Marlene Dietrich's got to be in this, and Jimmy Stewart, where it
put her in a
weirdly,
Western.
where it just works weirdly, because I wouldn't have thought Jimmy Stewart, Mr. America's all American guy with Marlene Dietrich, who just exudes kind of smoky sexiness, and he's just like it's just such a weird pairing, and it really works. I seem to genuinely enjoy being on screen together. She is fantastic. She's got some great singing numbers, of course, as she does, and she's just got these great one-liners, and I love the way he comes in as this pacifist, and there's this other sheriff who's brought him in, who's the town drunk, and he's brought him in because he wants him to bring law and order, and when he comes in and he's like, where are your guns? And he's like, oh, I don't carry guns. The guy just like freaks out. What? What are you going to do? He has a bird cage.
Off the stagecoach.
But I loved that. I loved the theme of it. The fact that he was this lawman who's going to just talk to people and talk reason to them, and everyone is just shooting at each other all the time. And Jimmy Stewart has no guns.
Well, they won't shoot an unarmed man, so he knows that's a law or a code that people won't necessarily cross.
In theory,
So he's very smart, and of course it's Jimmy Stewart, so he plays that so incredibly well, and it's so cool to see him in a Western, because after all the Anthony Mann movies, you just get used to now seeing him just as a cowboy. It totally works. And Marlene Dietrich has there's a great fight scene that she has with another woman in this movie that is just wow. I mean, that is a full-on. And I did some background reading, and they really did. They didn't pull many punches. They were really hitting one another. And then she has a tussle with Jimmy Stewart that literally clears the bar. That is just absolutely hilarious.
Yeah.
It goes on maybe a little too long, but it was so much fun. It really didn't matter.
The songs are great, and it's just everything about it. It's just very well done. George Marshall, great director from this period, and just it's just so much fun. I was just such a hoot. I couldn't believe it.
But
it's a much less serious Western. It's much more like a Western comedy, but
it's been remade a few times. It's kind of a famous story that I don't really know that too much of. I mean, I've seen spins off from that.
I don't think the remakes are supposed to be as good as this original.
No.
It would be hard to beat Jimmy Stewart and Marlene Dietrich, and just their personalities. I hate to sound like one of these, old frumpy. Actually, I was not alive in 1939, not shockingly, so I'm not really that being old and frumpy. But you think about modern stars, and you see Marlene Dietrich and Jimmy Stewart come in, and you're just like, wow, she just holds the screen. She could just do nothing. She's just standing at a bar smoking a cigarette, and you're just like totally fascinated, like, oh, what else? How is she going to keep smoking? What's going to, you just want to watch her forever.
Yeah, and it's
So.
great to see how they have the little scheme that they're able to, shake down different guys at the
Right.
card game that she's going on. Yeah, they kind of just pretty much are just running that town,
Yeah.
and it's a really great film. A little hard to find, but I think you can actually stream it online or pay for it online or rent it and stuff. But it's definitely one to
Yeah, it was
certainly
harder
find
one
out.
to find, which I don't know why, because
1939 was considered the
Great
greatest
year, one of the
and
greatest years
there's
for
one
film.
that I can add on
Another
there,
one.
add to it and say,
Yeah.
yeah, that certainly is.
Okay, so we'll move on to our next film, very lesser known Western, I Shot Jesse James from 1949 by Samuel Fuller. And this is about the Bob Ford who betrays his best friend Jesse James for a shot at a normal life and a chance with his sweetheart, but ends up ostracized and plagued by shame and fear the rest of his life. This film, was done much later on, a version of it of sorts, much different version of it, a film called The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford, which is Casey Affleck, Brad Pitt, fantastic movie with amazing cinematography. This is a much stripped down version of that by Sam Fuller. John Ireland plays Bob Ford, and I think he's actually quite good in it. I thought he was good. I mean, you can't really compare the two because they're just totally different movies.
I know.
One is much more philosophical and contemplative. This one is just a
yeah.
very kind of straightforward little Western story. I did like this, and you really
Yes.
do see some of the great Sam Fuller. This is Sam Fuller's first film, so people are fans of his later work. You can really get a sense of where he started in his career. And for him to just come out of the gate with a movie that's this confident and assured.
It is, and it's well made. I did enjoy this movie, but you can't ignore the shadow it stands in, and it's really unfair to this picture. So if you haven't seen this one or the Brad Pitt film, see this one first.
Right.
You will enjoy it, and then you watch the other one, and your jaw hits the ground. It's just one of the greatest westerns of all time. And the assassination of the Brad Pitt one is just it's just an incredible film, and that was really with watching this one. I did enjoy it, but when you're watching Robert Ford, you're thinking, it's Casey Affleck. It was the first time he swung for the fence and cleared it.
Right.
And so this is a contemplative
Right.
character. And this one, it's just kind of played, straight ahead. I mean, this is a film from 1949. It's not that, it's more surface level and not going that deep. But it was really hard
Well,
to
it
sit
is
and
not.
watch this
It is
one
not a
because
philosophical character study.
no,
by
it's
any
not. But
means.
I do enjoy, what he, the story. Certainly when he betrays Jesse James, and then he thinks he's going to be this big hero because he's taken the sin.
Yeah, it's kind of sad in a way.
Jesse James was seen as a Robin Hood for his times,
Yeah,
and so
he was a man of the
immediately-
people. The
yeah.
people loved him. It was just because the law
Ooh.
was after him, and now you
Yeah.
were the guy that brought down this people's
Ooh,
hero.
Traitor.
You're
As we
a
learned,
traitor.
when they did the show and
Backstabber.
the other film, the people yelled traitor at him and stuff, and I thought that was just absolutely fantastic. So, it's a good. I really like Sam Fuller's work. It is a pretty impressive first film. I mean, it's a very confident
Yeah, and it's worth
film,
saying
like
for
you
that.
said.
Obviously, he went on to make even much greater films, but
Yeah.
it's a great introduction to his work. If you haven't seen his films, or you just
Good looking, black and white.
Yeah, it's
Fantastic,
a perfectly
yeah.
fine film. I think if it wasn't standing in the shadows of this other film with a similar story, it would be.
There's a double feature right there. You just watch I Shot
start with
Jesse
the earlier
James,
one.
yeah, and then go with the assassination.
Partially because the
of-
earlier one's, shorter, so you could.
And if you've
for-
seen the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford, kudos to you because no one else did. Nobody saw that movie. That movie tanked hard. Unfortunately, it's a brilliant.
And his
brilliant
follow-up,
film.
which I also loved, "Killing Me Softly," which you did not like as
I
much.
did not.
but
It's got an
you-
F for the cinema scores.
like a lot of
That was
other
the
great
only one.
films.
Yeah, all the other great films of. There you go. So we'll move on to the next movie.
Piano.
The piano did not get an F.
Look it up.
No, I think the pianist maybe got F, but I don't think that one.
I don't know. Something
No,
with
I don't think
piano.
that was. She doesn't know what she's talking about.
Okay.
So let's see. So we'll move on to a Bud Boetticher movie.
Oh, boy.
Bud Boetticher movie. I love Bud Boetticher films. This means it's less than 90 minutes. It tells the story through actions, reactions, and shots. It doesn't have there's not a lot of exposition for the most part. This movie cuts down to it. There's no fat.
It's
on
the
his
opposite of
films.
Blade Runner 2049.
It's the opposite of Sergio Leone. It's the opposite of a lot of things.
He would have watched that movie and gone, "I could have done that in 30 minutes."
What's Harrison Ford doing in it? So this stars Bill Dolan as the Cimarron Kid, who's on a train, and the train is robbed, and he's immediately implicated that he must have known these people. He was involved with them, so he gets off the train along with a woman and a teacher. And no, she's not a teacher. with a woman and another man, and they have to seek out the gang in order to survive. And he finds himself integrated back into the outlawish land, or outlawish ways. It's a solid film. It's not one of his best films. I think it's mainly because the cast in this one isn't so good.
Yeah.
It's a good cast, but it's a serviceable cast. But it's a smart. I really enjoyed the story. I certainly enjoy the way he tells the story. So this is pretty much just
you're going
all
to
him
recommend
at
this one? I'm surprised.
Yeah, I can still. I can
So
still
when we were
recommend
watching
it. It's okay.
you were kind of okay. Well, I can't
It's
recommend.
3 stars. I mean, it's just a
Yeah,
barely
I can't
recommend.
go there. I mean, this is for. I mean, I've enjoyed all of his other films, Boetticher, but this one just. And I think the main problem for me was the casting of Audie Murphy as the lead guy, as the Cimarron Kid. He just doesn't hold the screen in this movie,
No,
and he
so
just
good.
looks a little too chic and tanned and glossy or something for
He
a
looks like a
Western
teen
kid.
idol that was stuck in a movie. But Rick Nelson is what they should have done, because there's a guy who could actually act.
Right. He actually looks like him, but like a
Yeah.
version of him that can't, of Ricky Nelson that couldn't act. Yeah,
But you
that's
gotta
good, that's
remember,
good. Or sing a song.
But don't you remember that the scenes in the barn where in between you always see the muzzles of the guns, and that happens at one point and it happens a little bit later.
Yeah.
I love that.
No, there were some
scene.
great
There's some
scenes,
fantastic.
but for me overall, I mean, I found myself even losing attention, which for a movie that's
Really?
only 70 minutes is not great.
Oh,
So
geez.
I just couldn't stay with this one. I wasn't that interested in the story as much. I kind of saw where it was going with the Dalton gang and the whole thing. I thought there were some great scenes, but it just didn't quite sew together.
For first-time filmmakers or inspiring filmmakers out there, this is a great way to save money and show how to condense films, not just with story, but also with they show them riding up to the hideout, then they show the inside of the hideout, then we never see them ride up to the hideout again. The rest of the scenes of the hideout take place inside the hideout because they don't have to do the exterior shots over and over. They can just do it in the set in the controlled environment instead of doing it outside. It's the little things like that I always really enjoy about his films. I just the making of them I always think is fascinating, and I just love his condensed.
I will agree the scene in the horse stables with the guns all of a sudden
awesome.
coming out, just the little,
So
just the
good.
barrel of the gun is all you see, and then
Yeah.
they got him,
Yeah.
So that's neat. Those little touches, Boetticher was overall a kind of a B movie director. Would that be safe to
Well,
say?
it's the
He just
second-
churned out a lot of these kind of movies that are. I mean, he wasn't a John Ford level Western maker, but we've
He
seen quite
was
a few of those that
the
we've enjoyed
second
quite a
film
bit.
in a double feature is what he did. That's
So
called the
I'm
B
more
movie.
anxious to talk about the next one.
next one. So we were actually going to do, was it 7 Women? It was John Ford, and then we could realize I didn't own the movie like we thought I did, and we can't find it. So we had to move on to 7 Men From Now, which is another Boetticher movie. Yay for me! Oh, this makes me so happy. And
Is this your Boetticher box set? The 3 Bs?
Yes, yeah. There's
Boetticher
several of them.
box set.
So this one stars Randolph Scott. Oh, even better. And he is a man that is after these men who committed murder. And what we find out in his backstory, through a little bit of a story there, is that he was the sheriff. He got demoted. He was offered a deputy job. He said no because he was too proud. So his wife took a job because he couldn't find one to make ends meet. And when the bank was robbed, she was killed. So he feels at fault. There you go. That's it. It takes 2 seconds to say it, and it shows on his face and hangs on his shoulders the entire film.
Yeah, he
And
feels
it's
responsible for his wife's death.
Absolutely.
And he's tracking
wonderful.
down these 7
Tracking
men.
down.
That's the 7 men from now that he feels are responsible for his wife's death, and
Yeah.
he's going to get them no matter what. But what I loved about it is it veers. I was like, okay, so this is a revenge story. This would be a
Yes.
classic. If this was a Tarantino movie, it'd be all revenge. But then along his way to find these men on his, his vengeful quest, he meets this man and his wife, who are just these kind of pioneers, settlers, who are moving from the East Coast to the West and just ambling along in their little buggy, but totally clueless. The husband, was it Walter Reed that played the husband? Totally clueless, don't know where they're going. The wife, played by the great Gail Russell. Thank you for recommending that I watch the
man.
extras about her, because she had a tragic life.
Fantastic.
She was an actress that was in just a few films, not a lot.
Amazing.
Died a very tragic early death, but was really promoted by John Wayne, who really liked her as an actress, and you could see why.
Yes, he sure did.
You could see why, because she really holds the screen, and she's got this great character to her face. In this movie, she's a little old. She's actually not that old, but the drinking has really played it. They said she was only like 30 when she made this, but she looks quite a bit older. And they're like this couple, and then he ends up sort of escorting them along the way through.
He earns their trust, helping them get out of the stuck, and it immediately just endears them to him. They don't really know how to get there, so he does. I'm
a little surprised that he agrees to go along with them and basically escort them to where they're going. I guess he's going the same direction.
So then they pick up Lee Marvin, oh my God. And then the movie really takes off because Lee Marvin is fantastic.
Very young,
in
early
this
Lee
film.
Marvin, yeah.
And he's quite menacing and tells stories and tries to, play on her and try to get with her and understand why she's with such
Belittles
a weak
her
man.
husband all the time.
Belittles his husband. Then, of course, there's an attraction between her and Randolph Scott. There's the typical helping the woman down from the buggy, and they kind of get really close. But they play it off really well. Then the best scene in the movie is where he sleeps under the buggy, she's in the buggy, and they have a conversation. And
through the little space in between the buggy and the floor. Yeah.
That is absolutely fantastic.
Now this movie,
loved it.
this is what the kind of thing that gave Bud Boetticher. This is why he's in Andrew Sarris's
This
book.
considers this one of his best films.
Yeah, you can see. Well, you can see why. It's a great film. It's so much better than the Cimarron Kid. If you have to watch a Bud Boetticher movie, watch this one instead of the Cimarron Kid. Would be my recommendation. Because and Lee Marvin, talk about. He's he's sort of the villain, but he's actually not the villain towards the end. I mean, he's a villain who's not a villain. I mean, he's scheming and he's sleazy and he's trying to hit on Gail Russell in all sorts of awful ways. So he's sort of the villain.
He likes to mix it up.
But he's got a code too. And at the end, he's kind of, when he finds the real villains, the ones who, killed Randolph Scott's wife, he's kind of playing with them a little bit. Like, he's coming to get you guys, he even tells him, no, I wasn't involved with that. I wouldn't stoop that low. If I was going to do something like that, I'd do it to your face, So he's got his own code, which I also like.
But there's the conversations they have around the campfire where he's telling stories about certain things and just trying to cause trouble, and he's absolutely fantastic in this. There is it's a classic Western, so does end in a shootout, and instead of the typical watching both people, pulling their weapons, we actually see just one. We see it from a perspective of one person, and we see the reaction of what happens to the other person. I don't want to give things away, but whoever it is that loses, we get to see from the winner's perspective. So all we see is the loser go for the draw, lose, and fall over and die. And it just was very different and interesting. I'm sure there were reasons, and I have a couple of reasons why technically they had to do it that way, but I love that they played it off that way. It was really, really cool. But Lee Marvin is just dynamite in this movie. He really, really is fantastic.
And a surprising, there is still the typical Westerns of shooting Native Americans and the things you might expect of a Western in the 50s. Randolph Scott's character is surprisingly sympathetic to them and points out at several times that there's people worried about this one particular tribe that they keep, being worried. There's also that element on top of all the other dangers out there. They're worried about this one tribe of Indians. And he says, well, yeah, they're dangerous because they're starving to death. That's why they're, he brings up, and that's surprising for a Western from 56 particularly, because this is still the period. I mean, the 70s we'd expect that, but not this period.
So real quick on that, this was written by Burt Kennedy, who also made 7 films with Bud Boetticher and Randolph Scott, including The Tall T, Buckingham, Buchanan Rides Again, Ride Lonesome, and Comanche Station. So this is a well-knit team that put this one together.
Yeah, so which other Bud Boetticher movies have we reviewed on the show at this point?
I think we did The Tall T. Didn't we do also Ride Lonesome, or am I thinking...
We did Ride Lonesome.
We did Ride Lonesome. I was thinking of Silver Load. His was also Silver Load, too, where the whole town
we
is
did
pitching
Silver
the one
Load.
guy. So yeah, that's another
Silver
one.
Load, the one with that blonde guy that always plays the great villains. You know which actor I'm talking about? He's also in a lot of film noirs as a bad guy.
Yeah.
You don't know who I'm talking about?
No.
I think he was the main guy in Silver Load.
I do love his movies, though. They are just...
Talk about economical.
Films.
I don't even know if 7 Men from Now, is that like his longest? I mean, was it 80 minutes, 90 minutes?
That'd have been that one, yeah.
He may, I don't know, I think he's rarely made a movie over 90 minutes, I would be willing to bet.
I don't know.
Yeah,
but yeah, they're always totally worth it. They're just absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. No, that's probably one of the big I also love Destry. Anyway, so we'll move on to our next one. And this is actually, this should be a lot of fun. So Django from 1966. And those of you out there like, that sounds familiar. You youngins out there go, Django. Someone named Tarantino made a movie called Django Unchained. Yes, he did. But this is the original, 1966 by Sergio Corbucci. This is what's known as a spaghetti Western, ladies and gentlemen. And they made a lot of them in the 60s. And by they, I mean the Italians made spaghetti Westerns, and it was quite a genre into itself. And that's why they're called spaghetti Westerns. This one is about a gunslinger who gets involved in a feud between, now wait for it, Mexican revolutionaries and a clan of Southern racists. You don't get to say that every day in a Western. when I, just even saying it when the movie started, and I thought, what is going on? Who are the bad guys? Oh, everybody's kind of a bad guy in this movie. Django's kind of in between the race. He's sort of on the side of the Mexican revolutionaries at the beginning. He's definitely not on the side of the racist. He doesn't like them.
Yeah.
But then the revolutionaries end up being kind of bad too. So the Maria is played by Laura Lena Musiak.
Oh.
She's Italian.
She's fantastic.
All the actors are Italian. Franco Nero stars as Django, and he went on to play him in I don't know how many movies.
There's a lot of them. It was like James Bond. It was like 20-something
Yeah, they
movies.
made like 20.
It's
they
like
just
Zatucci.
made one after another
They
of
just
the
cranked them
Django
out.
movies. And I can't say that I've seen any of the others. So other than this one and Django Unchained, that's all I've seen. But the great trick with this movie is that Django, his thing is he carries a coffin around. He drags this coffin.
Such an incredible
And that is really
visual.
the conceit. That is the thing in the movie that
Love
catches
it.
you immediately. As soon as I saw this guy, I'm like, why is he dragging a coffin? And even I had no idea what was in the coffin until he brings it out. And when he brings it out, I will not give it away. For those of you who have not seen it, it is...
What's what's in the box?
Yeah, you could definitely see the Tarantino influence because everybody asks him what's in it and he won't tell them. And throughout the whole film until you know.
And the city is just mud. Until we get inside where it sets out.
Oh yeah, it's just
the
mud.
city is just absolutely muddy. So
everyone is.
It
filthy.
creates the atmosphere. Now this was the first true spaghetti western. Even though Sergio Leone's The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly and his Fistful of Dollars were the ones that were the major big releases that people thought that had started this. But this was actually the first one. This one is also inspired by Yojimbo. So we get that story again, the same as the Fistful of Dollars, which is hey, if you're gonna knock off anyone, let's go with Kurosawa. It has a great atmosphere, like I said, with the city, with all of that mud. There is the typical double crosses that you expect. A couple that I did not see that were coming that I thought was fantastic. There is a scene where he falls into the water and he's injured and he's going to drown, and somebody saves him, and then someone is killed, and that totally shocked me. I was, because I'm going along and enjoying the movie, and it's like, oh yeah, it's just this Western, everyone's kind of bulletproof. Nope. And that really surprised me, and that really shocked me, and that really pulled me into the film, and I really enjoyed that. But it's, it's a little over the top. It's a little over.
A little
over the top.
It's a lot over the top. It's a lot
melodramatic, but you gotta love those things. And I'll be honest, I had the option of of watching it with subtitles, because they're speaking in Italian, or with the dub, and I went with the dub.
You went with dubbed, and I went with Italian.
I had to go with dub because it was like, no way, it's too good. But I left the subtitles on, so the subtitles were a little more, I assume, were a little more accurate of a translation than what they were saying. So I got a couple times there was a couple different stories or different things that were being said than I was reading. But you had to enjoy that. It just kind of I
started watching it dubbed, and then I thought, no, I'm a film snob. I'm going to be a purist about it. But then when you think about a movie like Django, I don't know if there's such a thing as being a purist. So I think it's actually cool that we watched it different ways, since I watched it in the Italian. Although technically,
I wish we'd watched it together, because that would have been a lot of fun.
We would have been cracking ourselves up probably way too much, but that would have been fun. And Sergio Corbucci, I assume, went on to make a bunch of other spaghetti westerns. Do you know much about him?
Yeah, he actually, and very successful ones as well.
So this was 66. So when did Fistful of Dollars and Good Bag? You don't know the years? Well, you said they were late.
Yeah,
they were later than this?
Yeah.
So this one is technically
because I always think
first?
they came out sooner than what they really did, but so it was just right after this. But this is truly the first one.
68. Yeah, I was thinking it was around
I want to say 68, but then you got to think of the next one was at 69, and then The Good, the Bad, the Ugly was 70. I always think they're all 60s, so I don't know. I get them all kind of
And Franco Nero, who of course made a career, playing Django, is a nice looking guy, startling blue eyes that really stick out, especially when his face is constantly pretty much caked with mud throughout the entire film. So it's not the Django Unchained, for those wondering who have seen the Tarantino movie. It is not a remake per se.
No.
I mean, it's nothing really this movie. It's more just
more
inspired homage.
Sure,
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. And he didn't use the coffin thing though, but I think that would have been.
That's been used. What was inside it has been used many, many times as a big surprise and/or a big reveal. Certainly, like in the Wild Bunch and different films like that. So that's always what that is. There is a great fist fight. That was my last note here that I had on here. It's a really great fist fight that he has between Django and Ricardo. in the middle of the film that's actually pretty epic and was well done. Americans films do a much better job when it comes to fistfights. I will say that that's true.
We're good at violence and hitting
we're good
stuff.
at that. When you get to the Italians, especially the French, not so much.
Oh,
But
the
this one
French
was actually pretty good.
especially.
The French
I know
are
it's a
really-
stereotype, but I have yet to see a French fighting scene.
Rules
where
of
it
the Game has one of the most laughable fight scenes of all
of
films.
all time. Yeah, the
So-
slapping.
So now we've gone through these, a lot of westerns. I know we've seen a lot of the classics, and I love the genre ever so much. And so now we're trying to get to films a little more on the outskirts there that I'm really starting to enjoy. I wish we'd have had a Ford film in here, certainly because he is the godfather of all westerns.
There's always time for
and
another
film.
westerns.
I know.
Episode,
Yeah.
Brian.
Oh,
I'm
no,
sure
I'm
we have
already
more
boiling another five
to
up.
review. We haven't totally watched everything.
Well,
I
when you
think, at
said
this
we
point.
wanted to do, we originally talked about we'll skip around the globe. We'll do Italian ones. We'll do these ones. And I went westerns. We got to do westerns.
Right.
So,
Well, these are all American except for Django,
yeah.
though, right?
So there's a little bit of globe.
But so how many stars are you giving Destry?
Destry Rides Again. That's a classic. I think that's 4.
4 stars.
Yeah.
And I shot Jesse James
would be 3 as well as the
3.
Cimarron Kid. Yeah.
And so
7 Men from Now. That's a solid 4. Man, that's between Destry and Rides. I think I'd lean towards 7 Men from Now, possibly. But either way, yeah, I think
as
those
your
are great.
your
Yeah.
favorite, and Django.
And Django, no, that's 4. I think that's a wonderful film
I
as well.
I can't give
Oh,
it that
that's so
high.
much
4
fun.
stars, though. 4
Yes.
stars. It's not
It's
a very
such
well-made
great energy.
movie.
You could always feel the joy. It's like those old kung fu movies where it was, they may not be put together extremely well, but you could feel the excitement and energy of the crew that had putting it together. I like that. I don't mind that, and it was definitely a really cool movie. And in fact, when I saw it, I was like, there's a couple of people I got to show this movie to because it's pretty cool.
Destry Rides Again would be my big pick from this one because you just can't beat James Stewart. And, yes, I'll sound like a broken record, Brian, but it's one of the few ones in here that has a really great female character.
Yeah.
And I can never get enough Marlene
She's
Dietrich.
crooked. She's a bad person.
That doesn't matter. She's
So,
a well-written, interesting female character.
That's
all
what we're
we
looking
ask.
for. Well written. Okay.
Interesting.
So she can be.
Fully developed character, not
Okay.
just a token girlfriend or she's got something interesting going on. And that fight scene with Marlene Dietrich. When she's done, she
Both
looks
of them,
like she
she's
really
great.
fight. When she comes out of the fight, when she walks up,
Yeah.
she is drenched, she is sweaty, she's dirty.
so much fun.
I mean, it was amazing. I was surprised that Marlene would let her makeup get messed up that much.
She was in it.
She wasn't messing
She wasn't-
around.
yeah,
So
no.
Okay, so that was our tribute to westerns. I guess you can look for another one at some point or some other genre film.
I'll give it a year.
Thank you to my wonderful co-host
Aw.
and our fabulous crew and our wonderful sponsors for supporting this show. As always, you can check us out on realfilmsnobs.com. We're also on Facebook. You can listen to us on KMUZ. You can follow us on Twitter. So I forgot that before. You can watch us on CCTV, on Scan TV in Silverton, or in Corvallis Access Media, and you can subscribe to our YouTube channel and watch us on there. I'd like to thank you and have a great day and great movies.